Good morning, hello and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at my latest acquisition. As a left-hander, I go on Faceplant Market Space fairly often to look for left-handed guitars. What we find in the left-handed selection there is usually guitars that are either fairly priced or overpriced, and the people hoping that you'll come down to a fair price. And so was the situation with this. This is a left-handed 12-string Vangoa. Now, it's not a very high-end guitar. Well, I picked it up for $130 for a left-handed 12-string guitar, so I had to kind of go for it. I have a left-handed 12-string Seagull S12 Coastline, but I need a backup. So this for $130, why not? It's finished in a matte black. What I found was, of the two times I did take it out on the deck and kind of just mess with it a little bit, I haven't played it much, but I found that with the matte black, your arm sweats and it creates a nice glossy spot there instead of the matte black. So I'm thinking I might want to refinish it. There's a couple of good sized dings in the back here. Are probably worth taking a chance at looking at it. I'm going to sand down the back of it, see what's under there for wood, and then if it's acceptable, may sand off the front. Might sand off the front anyways, and then I can either repaint it or finish it in another stain or something like that. We'll take a look and see. What we did notice though is it does have the 1.8 width nut. The headstock is huge. You could land a plane on that headstock. Don't know what I'm going to do there, but because none of my guitar cases fit it. But it is an acoustic electric. There is a small equalizer there, and I did plug it in to make sure that it does work, and it does work. So that's what we're going to do. I believe the strings aren't all that old, but they are a little tarnished, so we may be changing them out right off the bat. But first thing we have to do is set up. Make sure that the string height is right, the relief is good, all that sort of stuff. And so that's where we're going to start out today. Off to the bench. So as I say, I just bought it. I haven't really looked it over too much other than cosmetically. I did make sure that the equalizer works, so that's all good. But I haven't really done any real close inspection as to the string height, as in the action and neck relief and that sort of thing. So first off, we'll probably take a look down the neck, and it seems fairly straight. There is a little bit of a bow in it, but it doesn't look way too out of line. It is pretty high action from what I can see there. So let's take the measure box and test that. And at the 12th in millimeters. Good gourd, Batman. 3 1/4. 3 1/4. 3 1/2. This is way, way too high. 3 1/2. When the action is that high, once you create a chord on here, it is naturally going to go sharp because you have so much bend in the strings, and that is way too high. So first things first, we're going to take a look at is the nut. So let's take a look at the nut action here. Nut action? That sounds dirty. Anyways, we put the capo on the 2nd fret, and then we check out the distance at the Okay, so we got low on that side, but it's high over here. But just. It's not way too bad. It's a little bit high. We're going to leave that for now. It's in the area where if it does need to be adjusted, it will be a very slight adjustment, and we can do that down the road. I think that saddle has to come down at least a couple of millimeters. You can see how high it is sticking up off the bridge just here. So that's where we're probably going to go, which means we have to loosen off the strings, and we always loosen off the skinny strings first, because if we take the tension off of the larger strings first, that's going to put a lot more pressure on these strings, and we're probably going to change these strings, but not until we get the setup completely done. You don't want to do the setup on new strings because you're going to be tightening, loosening, and you don't want to take a chance at breaking one of them. So always do your setups on the bad strings, the old strings. Then if you do by chance break one, well, you were going to change them anyways. Now, whoever did the restringing of this lately did it in a hurry, because there's not even a full winding on the first low, or the low E octave string. It's literally half a way around. Same with that one. Yeah, most of these have like next to no windings on them at all, so they're gonna have to be removed. But for now, let's just move them out of the way and see how far we have to loosen them in order to get that saddle out. Okay, so now we're going to see if there's enough room to get this here saddle out of there, and there is not, because the saddle is, well, way too big. See if I can slide this out. Holy cow. But oh, here it comes, come on, baby. Now there's probably a pickup in there that I'm not seeing, and there's a big line on the saddle. That is just the edge of the bridge because it's been painted black. So we're probably going to want to take a couple of millimeters off this. What we're going to do is get out our 180 grit sandpaper and a Sharpie and a straight edge, and we're going to put a mark across here with how much we want to take off, and we're wanting to take off a lot, but I'm going to set it at about maybe 2 millimeters, just eyeballing it. That's way too much. Same thing on the other side. Maybe go a little less on this side. And then all we do is put a mark on the saddle and then sand it off. And that just by holding here and rubbing back and forth across the 180 grit sandpaper. You'll notice right off the bat that it starts removing. Probably what we're going to do is remove most of the line on this side. That side's way too high. But we're just going to remove most of the line and then put it back in, wind it up, check our action again. Okay. Oh, drink. Now I went a little wild with the height on the Sharpie marks. So we're only going to go down to halfway through the lower of the two that I put on there. And we're going to now reinstall it in the guitar and double check the action. So we are just going to try and slip this in. I know this is the other end, so slide it back in there, which it slides in real easy, of course, because we took a pile off of it. And now we will bring it back up to tension. We don't have to get it into exact tune, get it into a good enough tension where we will be able to tell what the action is. And just to prove my point, I burst the G string. Yep. Okay, at the 12th, now we are at 2.75. Still too high. Still too high. Okay. We're still at about 2.5. So we still want to bring it down about another millimeter. And that's why you use old strings to do your setup, because I broke one. So let's remove and start sanding again. So as it turns out, the lowest of the two Sharpie lines I put on there is probably correct. So we are going to remove the rest of the first line, and then we will restring and try it again. Here we go. And the neat thing is, because this is just plastic, it doesn't really wear out your sandpaper. This is 180 grit sandpaper. You just get a bunch on there and then clean. All right, so we've taken off a bit more. I didn't go to quite take off the complete line, because if this doesn't work, what we might do is do a slight truss rod adjustment as well. So we are now at just about 2, which is 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2, 2 1/4. Oh, missing 2, 2, 175, 2, and about 175. So the 175 will take. So to mitigate that 2 a little bit, what we're going to try and do is a truss rod adjustment. And I should have done it before I tightened up all the strings. Learn from my mistakes. See if we can get by with only having to loosen those ones. And we do have the proper size. Now, to lower the head, you want to tighten the truss rod. And we are going to tighten it about that much. It's given a lot of resistance at that point, so let's bring some more attention to the wires again and check it again. But first we're going to check down the neck, and that is pretty straight. But there does still seem to be enough of a angle, as in higher at the other end, that we should be okay. So let's bring it up to tension and see how it looks. So now, with the slight truss rod adjustment, let us check the action again at the 12th in millimeters. We got about 2, 175 to 2, 2, 175 to 2, 2, 2, 175 to 2, and about 175 out on the far end. So that looks good. Now what we're just going to do is go over each fret and make sure we have no buzzing anywhere else. And so there is no buzzing across it. The neck looks fairly flat, but it does come up a bit at the end. It does come up a bit at the end, so there is a bit of a curvature to it. Next, what do? Let's take the stinking old crusty strings off it and see where we go from there. Start with a cleanup, good cleanup, and then we'll decide on whether we're going to refinish it or not. So now we make sure we've got all the strings. Make sure you count them. I've already counted the pegs to make sure that I still have 12 of those. And wrap into a tight little circle, which goes for recycle. Most of your guitar shops will have a bin where you can put used strings so that they don't get into the landfills and that sort of thing, because, well, they're strings and they suck. And with that, we may as well remove the saddle because we know it's going to fall out. We know which end is which, so let's put it aside and take a good close look over the rest of this guitar. And of course, one of the first things we go looking for is our flashlight and our phone. We are going to take a look inside and just see what's in there. So long story short, just saw a bunch of stuff on the inside of a guitar. One of the sides of the bridge, there seems to be some staining on the inside. What that's from, I have no idea. But now let's just go over the whole thing and clean it up and see how it looks like when we're done. And we are just going to use our standard spray cleaner, not a paid promotion, and some cut up t-shirt type material. Always cut the hems and seams off because the strings made and the hems and seams are nylon, tougher material, because they want to always do in a well ventilated area. Always take the hems and seams off of the material that you're going to use, because the thread that they use for the hems and seams is a nylon, and it is a little tougher material with extended use, and like rubbing across this finish all the time, you could eventually start scratching it. It's not worth the hassle, so just cut the seams and the hems off of the material. You can use the special chamois and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, go ahead if you want. I'm just using this because I've got lots of it and it's recycling. So the insides looked fairly normal. It looks like, my guess is that it's an epoxied on neck, because I could not find any bolts or any cover that might hide bolts. And the side seems to have a seam just a couple inches from the top. There's the standard output jack. And the standard control box. But the strangest thing inside was there seems to be a stain on the bottom of the bridge. And I don't understand it. Maybe it's just the finish came through on one side, but and of course the bridge has been bolted on, which is probably good, because there is a slight gap between the bridge and the soundboard right at the bottom there. Not too bad yet, but and you can see there's little spots here and there where the screws have been hidden. And as for the outside, there seems to be a very rough spot on the fretboard right about here. It almost looks like possibly the fretboard was misshaped there and they never got it down to being flat, but it's obviously got a spot. But other than that, it seems to be in fairly good shape. So we've cleaned it up now. We've pretty much taken a look at the outsides all over. So now we're going to take our measuring box and go over all the frets and see rock right there. Now I'm not going to worry about these ones because they're way up in the area I don't play. We're going to start down at this end and just go over all of the frets and see if we got any rocking. No. A little bit, very little. So a few of them are going to take a little bit of a grinding. So let's get our fret files. So the ends of the frets don't need to be touched. They're fine. There's binding along the outside of the neck, so I'm guessing that is probably why they don't touch at all. But a couple of them are doing a little bit of rocking, so we're just going to touch them up a little bit. We're not going to do a complete fret dressing, just as I say. Number 2 needs a little bit right in the middle. So we get out our fret files. Not a paid promotion, blah blah blah. But I'll tell you, this thing has come in handy. It's too bad that it sticks in the humid weather. But so we have the second fret right about the middle. So we're just going to touch this one, try and keep it as level as possible and get just the middle. We're only going to do about 3 or 4 runs and then see, yeah, I can use 2 more runs. Either way, we're going to go over the whole fretboard and I'll update you at the other end. Okay. So there was about 5 or 6 spots across the fretboard that we wanted to just touch up the frets a little bit. They just needed a slight bit of tweaking. I don't think this one has got all that much use on it. There's some markings on the back which tell me that it's been hit there, but there's no pick guard on it and there's no marks there. So either the person who used it was finger style or was very careful with his pick or just didn't play it a lot. And honestly, I don't see that much wear on any of the frets. It's all good that way, and that's where you're going to start noticing it. So there's where that is. Now, do we take sandpaper to the back and see what the finish is underneath? I'm thinking maybe we're just going to leave it this for now and see if maybe where I was getting sweat marks on it, maybe it was just coincidence or because I was out in the sun, and I probably shouldn't be out in the sun playing this thing anyways. But maybe we'll just wait just first off and restring it, make some noise and see how it sounds. And then if we really want to, we'll go at it with the sandpaper. As I say, the front is fairly good. The finish is pretty good. There's no real marks on it. There might be a little wee scratch there, but it could just be the surface underneath. As I say, there was that spot here on the fretboard that had the rough area. Maybe it just wasn't completely finished. Like it's I think they were like $199 new. So it's not an expensive guitar. So let's go and restring it up now and just see what kind of noise we get out of it, basically. But first, maybe we should oil the fretboard. I'm not sure if this is rosewood or some other type of teak or something. I'll probably have to do a little research and try and find out what the fretboard actually is. So from what I'm seeing online, it should be a Sitka spruce top, sapella, laminated sides and back. I'm taking it the top will be laminated too. And the fretboard is walnut. So I think we're just going to give it a little oil to kind of seep in, let it sit in there a bit, and be very careful not to get it on the satin black finish, because, well, that will just look silly. Anyways, let's get to it. Using a fresh rag, don't mix your chemicals. The other stuff was cleaner. It was made to basically clean things off. This is an oil, so it is going to seep in is what we're hoping it's going to do. Yeah, not a paid promotion. But either way, get a little bit of the oil. And get a full 100% coverage on the fretboard. I usually put a whole bunch on and let it seep in for a little bit. I'm not going to bother with this one. I'm just going to get a nice, good, even, light coat. And we'll see, because I can't tell if it's dry or not. And you don't want to put way too much on, because you don't want the stuff to get underneath the fretboard and separate the fretboard from the neck. That's a rare thing, but rare things happen. Now we're just going to hold this up to the light. And we seem to be good. Get out our 10mm socket and make sure all these nuts are tight. And you get a 10mm deep socket, because if you get a shallow socket, the spindle going through will push the ratchet or speed handle or whatever it is you use out. Now I'm just doing it by hand, and that one was loose. So we're going to make sure that one was loose. So is that a problem for our tuning? So I'm just holding it up near the top because I don't want to over tighten these, but we do want to make sure that they're snug. And yeah, they were all loose. So make this a part of your general maintenance when you're restringing. So my guess is this might not have had a whole bunch of use, for the simple fact that it had such high action. 3.5mm action is just way too much. Now, as I say, I'm holding it right up near the top here, holding the ratchet up there so that I don't bam it. and put way too much pressure on it. And there we have it. So possibly that was a bit of our problem with the tuners. And that one looks like it's got a wire in it still. A string in it. So let's take a closer look at that. So I picked myself up a batch of very small and different type of files, and I'm going to go around these here spindles and just kind of make sure that they're just going to feel for burrs, and there are a couple of burrs here and there, and I think I'm just going to go over them lightly and file them smooth, which entails turning them around and getting them closer. So it's just every so often you can feel a little burr. You can hear it. You can hear it jumping. So just running my fingers around the spindles, and every so often you can feel a burr at the string entry port. So I'm just kind of smoothing them off, because a really sharp edge and a lot of pressure can break a string. And as I say, these are very inexpensive tuners, obviously, because, well, it's a very inexpensive guitar. But this is what I like to do. I like to take a guitar that's of questionable value and just make it the best it can be. I'm not into like replacing a lot of parts and that sort of thing, but let's just make what we have work. And there we go. So now it is time to restring, I think. Let's think. Think. Cold coffee. Yeah. That's just to remind you how long you've been doing this. So let's get the nut. No, let's get the saddle. Put it back in here. I can't see the pickup in there, so I'm guessing it's buried. The bridge is fixed, meaning that it had those screws on it. And I'm not sure what that stain is, but it could be just something that seeped through. I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't seem to be doing anything bad, so let's leave it at that. As I say, we're going to leave the finish for now. Might do that in a future episode, because I'm going to be probably doing a few episodes on this thing, or at least 2. Alrighty, strings. Not a paid promotion. Have I said that before? And we will go color coded. From gold, red, black, green, purple, and silver. So the first set of strings, the what they consider E strings, although mine will be tuned to a different spot because, well, it's a 12 string and I would rather tune it down some, are gold spools on the end of them. Always holding the strings far away from your face when you release them. And of course, the skinnier of the two strings is the first one to be installed. So what we're going to do is take the spindle, the spool, make it roll this way down into the hole so it would roll in or roll out. Don't go sideways. We take the groove and put it up through, push down so far, and then you're going to get to the spot where the pin keeps going down but the string does not. That's what you want. Push the pin down tight. Make sure your saddle's in the right way. Up through this end, string in the nut, and go up past the third spindle. You want to put in the first one, go up past two more, and that is where you want to cut it. Making sure you hold on to both sides of the string as you cut so that you do not lose the tail, as tails are dangerous things and you don't want to mess with them. So we slip the string through the spindle, hanging out just about 1/8 of an inch, and make a crank in the string. That will hold it steady while you start to wind. The first time it comes around, you go over the tail, and then you start running it down into below the crinked side, below the tail, and keep rolling down into the headstock. So over the tail the first time around, and then under the crink, under the tail, and blah blah blah, keep on going. Give me a M. Okay, and then we do that, let's say 11 more times. And when we're done, when you get that far in and you realize what time it is, take a break, have something to eat. Well, it seems to work. It actually sounds pretty good, actually. I'm more impressed than I thought I might be. For $130, a left-handed 12 string. It let's check it out. At the 12th in the millimeters, it's actually still about 2.5. 2.5. It's still pretty high, actually. Over 2. 2 and above. 2 to 2.5. So we could still do a little more to it. Let's see if we could do it by truss rod. Not a whole heck of a lot by truss rod. It's about as flat as we're going to want it anymore, and we're going to create buzz. But the saddle can come down more. Let's let it sit for a little bit and see how it handles this over the next week or so. And then we'll take a look at it at that point. Maybe we'll go back in and drop the saddle a bit more. Maybe check the finish. So there's a good ding there and a couple of scratches here and another good ding there. And then there's some sweat marks from me. And then there's some sweat marks from me. Because it's still taking it. Not as much, but of course I'm not out in the sun either, so. But it actually sounds not too bad. I guess now I should probably plug in the EQ and make sure that's still working. So I'm rather happy with it. As I say, it's a $130 Vangoa, but it more than works. So, of course, brand new strings, full new setup. Cut it out. It should work. So with that, thanks for watching. Please share, like, subscribe. Leave a comment below. Tell me what I did right, did wrong. I know I do things wrong. I'm not a luthier. I'm just an old guy with too much time on my hands. So with that, we'll catch you next time. Bye now.